They came quietly, slipping into business parks and high-rises under the guise of legitimate online work. The signs were in Mandarin, the faces unfamiliar, the rules unknown. But inside those walls, behind tinted windows and tight security, entire industries of fraud, exploitation, and cybercrime flourished. All under the banner of POGO, the Philippine Offshore Gaming Operators. What began as a simple tax strategy spiraled into something far more dangerous. This is not just about gambling. This is about a nation's sovereignty, its laws, and the foreign syndicates testing how far they can go when money talks, and the system listens. This is the story of how the Philippines became the new frontier of China's underground empire. When people hear POGO, they might imagine a local tech startup or some government acronym for economic development. But the truth is more calculated. POGO stands for Philippine Offshore Gaming Operator, a license category created by the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation, PAGCOR, in 2016. These were not for Filipinos to gamble online. No, these licenses were strictly designed for foreign companies operating in the Philippines but targeting overseas clients, primarily mainland Chinese gamblers, where online gambling is illegal. Why would the Philippines legalize this? In theory, it was brilliant. PAGCOR saw a goldmine in taxing the billions of yuan spent by Chinese gamblers online. By housing operations in the Philippines and taxing their infrastructure, the country could earn massive revenue without touching its own citizens. But in practice, the enforcement was weak, the operators were shady, and the line between legal and illegal blurred quickly. It wasn't long before what should have been a controlled, regulated economic opportunity mutated into an uncontrollable security threat. The moment the Philippines opened the POGO floodgates, Chinese nationals flooded in, businessmen, tech workers, call center agents, and underground bosses. They came with bags of money, leased high-rises in Makati and Pasay, and transformed office parks into tightly secured gaming centers. Some even brought in their own chefs, translators, and logistics teams. Within 2 years, more than 300,000 Chinese nationals were believed to be working in POGO-related jobs. Airlines added more flights from Fujian to Manila. Filipino landlords cashed in as entire towers became Chinese-only dormitories. But this boom wasn't all glamorous. Many of the workers weren't registered. Human trafficking rings began moving Chinese laborers into the country using tourist visas, then locking them in cramped call centers. Workers were often forced to scam their fellow Chinese citizens by impersonating bank officials, police, or lovers. Some were beaten, others branded or chained, their passports confiscated. The line between worker and prisoner began to blur, and Filipino authorities, overwhelmed or compromised, were slow to react. By 2019, the facade of offshore gaming had cracked wide open. These weren't just tech offices or casinos. They were often fronts for international crime syndicates, many with known ties to Chinese triads and Southeast Asian criminal networks. Under the radar, POGOs became conduits for money laundering, cyber fraud, blackmail, cryptocurrency theft, and even drug trafficking. Raids on POGO sites revealed torture rooms, soundproof chambers, and underground tunnels. Some of the criminal operations targeted Chinese citizens, yes, but others preyed on Filipinos too. There were reports of scam farms posing as romantic partners, using fake identities to lure victims into bogus investments. The platforms were sophisticated, backed by millions in capital, tech infrastructure, and foreign protection. These weren't lone wolves. These were well-funded, militarized digital crime syndicates operating on Philippine soil, under the legal cover of a licensed industry. The question then becomes, how did this happen so easily? How did thousands of unregistered Chinese workers enter the country, set up multi-million-dollar operations, and escape scrutiny? The answer, as many suspect, lies in corruption. Whistleblowers inside the Bureau of Immigration described a system of bribes, codenamed pastillas, where Chinese workers were allowed into the country for cash slipped into candy wrappers, 10,000 pesos to 20,000 pesos per head. Local politicians turned a blind eye. Some received donations from POGO developers for local infrastructure or election campaigns. Even national agencies appeared lax, rarely conducting deep audits or cross-checking tax records. The message was clear. If you're foreign, wealthy, and connected, Philippine law is negotiable. It wasn't just about loopholes. It was about deliberate silence. Because POGOs, despite the controversy, were fueling the economy, leasing property, buying supplies, and creating a visible boom that masked its darker underbelly. By 2020, the Philippine public began waking up. Reports of POGO-related kidnappings made headlines. Neighbors in Manila condos complained of noisy, secretive tenants who spoke no Filipino or English. Crime statistics began showing a rise in gambling-related violence. Filipinos saw Chinese-only establishments, restaurants, dormitories, even gyms, and began asking, "Are we still the hosts, or have we become the tenants?" Protests erupted in urban centers. Hashtags trended. Activists and commentators asked why POGOs were allowed to operate so freely while Filipino street vendors were still harassed daily. The backlash wasn't just economic, it became cultural. The fear wasn't just about crime. It was about losing control of national spaces, values, and laws. Publicly, China condemns gambling. Its laws prohibit online casinos, and its embassies regularly issue statements denouncing offshore gaming. But in practice, China did little to stop its citizens from working or running POGOs in the Philippines. Critics argue this is strategic hypocrisy. China benefits from offshore operations that launder capital and diffuse dissent. Furthermore, China has used its influence to request special treatment for POGO workers, including leniency during raids and deportation delays. It walks a double line, disavowing gambling, but allowing syndicates to thrive abroad. Some analysts believe this is part of a broader geopolitical move, a kind of soft colonization by economic infiltration, where syndicates and legitimate investors blur into the same gray zone of influence. By 2022, police raids became more aggressive, storming compounds, rescuing trafficked victims, seizing weapons, and arresting top-level operators. But with every successful raid, another POGO popped up somewhere else. It's a game of whack-a-mole, but with high-stakes consequences. Several Chinese nationals found dead under suspicious circumstances. Some were ruled suicides, others vanished before court dates. Filipino cops and immigration officers have also been implicated or even killed in suspicious events. The public began asking, how deep does this go? How many politicians are in on this? And when will the law truly catch up with the money? The Marcos administration has taken a harder stance on POGOs, pushing for deportations, tighter visa controls, and legislative bans. But the battle is far from over. The syndicates are agile. They move their money through crypto, hire legal shields, and adjust faster than the law can keep up. Meanwhile, economic dependence on Chinese investment, whether through POGOs, construction, or tourism, creates hesitation among lawmakers. The bigger question remains: what kind of country does the Philippines want to be? A sovereign state that sets and defends its laws, or a playground for foreign syndicates with better lawyers and deeper pockets? In the end, the POGO problem is not about casinos or taxes. It's about trust. Trust in the law, trust in government, and trust that your country isn't quietly being sold off one tower at a time. The Philippines welcomed POGOs thinking it was a business opportunity. What it got instead was a slow erosion of control, from the inside out. This isn't a story about Chinese workers. It's a story about systems, exploited, bought, and bent to serve foreign power. The question now is not whether POGOs will be banned. The question is whether the nation can ever close the door once it's already been kicked open by syndicates with a smile and a bribe. This is no longer just a scandal. It's a sovereignty test, and the whole world is watching how the Philippines responds.